Welcome back, Sex in South Beach, with your girl, Dr. Sanjaya, and Dr. Will Joseph, our marijuana expert. Because what we're talking about cannabis and coitus. Okay, for those of you, coitus, sex. Okay, sex words. We use the right sex words. Remember all the time. When I think about anal, that's what we were talking about right before the break. I think about, ouch, ouch, ouch. I think about pain. Seriously, that's what I think about. Okay, not everybody thinks about that when they think about anal.
Right.
So I was thinking, we were talking about marijuana, how marijuana might be used to relax you so that you could get ready for something like anal. And then earlier we were talking about the marijuana lubricants, and you can put those right in the spot. So if you have vaginal pain, you might be able to apply a marijuana oil right there. Is that correct?
Right. Most definitely. Yeah.
And so I imagine for the anus, it would be the same.
Yeah, I haven't I haven't seen
You haven't had anal sex recently?
No, not at all. Yeah.
But 50% of women are having it, or 40.
Yeah. No. You're right. No, I just haven't lately or nothing. But
I love when I get the guests to talk about their sex life.
Right. No.
He said lately. You heard that? No. Okay. Back to the show. Let's go.
No. Yeah, we talked about that localized pain relaxation component. So I guess pre and post. So I would switch up what type I'm using pre and post. So
Okay, so women, unfortunately, have a lot of issues that deal with sex pain, or a lot of sex issues that are painful. One being dyspareunia. And the way I describe this is like when the garage door closes down, and let's all imagine that the garage door is a woman's vagina.
Right.
So when the garage door closes down, but the car is still trying to get in, right? And the only way the car is going to get in is to like drive through the garage door.
Yeah.
That's a very painful experience. And you have no idea how many women suffer from dyspareunia. Any woman who has had breast cancer procedures or ovarian cancer procedures or is recovering from trauma. Some people just have some genetic issues that cause dyspareunia, but it's a common issue that I talk about a lot with women. And we know that there's some lasers that have some modest effects, but we really haven't found any sort of drug, or any sort of medication to help with this. So I'm wondering if a marijuana lubricant would be an area that we should really investigate with relation to female pain. I mean, if your vagina does not want to open up due to anxiety or due to some other issues that are going on, do you think that would be helpful?
It sounds like it. I'm not a woman, but I could just imagine. It sounds pretty painful. So
you understanding the clinical benefits of marijuana, and now that I'm telling you about this woman's pain, I mean, theoretically, it seems like it would work, right?
Right. Theoretically, yes. It does sound like it'll work.
So ladies, if you're one of my girls out there suffering from dyspareunia, and it is so common, first of all, I want you to know that you are absolutely not alone. One of my colleagues I work with, she's actually a nurse practitioner, and she is a survivor of breast cancer, very young woman in her early 30s. She told me she's been having horrifically painful sex for 5 years, but she's such a good faker that her partner doesn't even know.
Wow.
And I just thought, oh my God, my heart broke open for her. I'm like, first of all, you should get an Oscar for that acting.
Yeah,
okay. You should get an Oscar for that. But second of all, what can I give this woman to help her? So this is really reassuring to me because it lets us know, there are things coming upstream. Yeah. And for those researchers out there who are making clinical or therapeutic products from marijuana, I really want you to consider female sexual pain as you're doing this research and as you're developing these products, because female sexual issues, you know what? They're just not really well addressed in research.
Yeah. And going back to that research area, things are opening up for us to find other treatments to specific ailments. As the marijuana descheduling has just happened, now we have, the floodgates have basically kind of open in regards to research and finding other medicinal benefits of marijuana, because, for the past 60 or 70 years, marijuana has been outlawed. That has limited our research. That has limited us finding the safe and effective uses of marijuana for different ailments, the pain and the need for relaxation. And so now that the floodgates have opened in regards to research and everything like that, now we're on the upward trajectory.
Right. And I know menopause is another one. Not that, first of all, and I'd like to clarify, hey, everybody, menopause, not a disease. If every single woman goes through it, it's
Right.
not a disease,
Right.
okay?
Right.
It is a natural part of nature. I do think we should get like a year off of work to go through it because we know if men did, that's what would happen. But I think menopause, some women say it makes sex better. Some women says it makes sex harder because there's a thinning of the vaginal walls. There's a difference in your estrogen production, which really regulates the lubrication.
Okay.
And so even though I don't believe, based on what I've learned from you, that marijuana is going to necessarily assist with the lubrication part, you might be able to get an effective lubricant with or without marijuana in it, right?
Right.
And then you can also ingest marijuana in a way that works for you to relax you. And what I'm thinking about is getting used to a new type of sex, because I think that's what really menopause represents. It's just a new way of having sex, a way of having sex where you're definitely not going to get pregnant, and a way of having sex where you only really have to do it because the beauty of getting old, ladies, is like you only got to do what you want to do. You be like, look, I don't do that no more. I don't do what. I do not succumb to peer pressure.
You ain't living
Okay.
that life no more.
But if I want to please my partner and I want to have sex with my partner, I'm thinking that could ease it both ways. You might be able to put some lubrication down in your vaginal area, and then you can ingest the marijuana, and then you can sort of get into that exploratory place in your mind where you're like, let's explore this new phase of my sex life.
Right. Most definitely. And you're talking about the exploration and everything like that. It's like you open up that other part of your brain, part of the creativity. But yeah.
And that's another great thing about marijuana. I think it could do, from what I've learned about the therapeutic benefits, one of the challenges, I think, to sexual relationships is that we don't evolve sexually in our relationships. So oftentimes people who are in a long-term relationship, one person wants to have sex like when they were first together, and the other person's like, look, I want to try new things. I got to try, everybody, we want to evolve in all our other areas, but we don't have any sort of, most people don't have any perspective that my sex life also has to evolve.
Right.
And so in exploring new things with your partner, or trying to keep things fresh, or maybe you've seen something or learned something or watched something or listened to my, podcast episode, Elevate Your Life with Easy Edibles, doing something fresh, something new. I think, marijuana could sort of empower your creativity in that respect. Is that right?
Absolutely. And going back to one of the, I can cite information from that, going back to the qualitative study that we conducted not too long ago, and it's basically talking about the reasons for cannabis use. A lot of the participants from the study are actually saying that, hey, marijuana actually allows me to be more creative. I'm thinking about more creative things. I'm more focused. You know what I'm saying? I'm more energetic, and they're talking about a lot of the therapeutic benefits of it. So, like you just stated, you've been in a long-term relationship for so long, you're running out of tricks. Maybe you want to smoke some weed to get some new ideas, and
Definitely. And I look, and I really am an advocate for role playing, because I think, we know that what do you say? Choices, basically. That's the spice of life, like diversity, like something new. Like otherwise, strip clubs would have shut down a long time ago, right?
Sure would have. Definitely in Miami.
But I'm like, I'm really an advocate for role playing, like becoming someone new. Before you have sex, one, if you're tired, which most people are tired, once you put on like a costume or, a new persona, you're like, I'm not even me. As Beyonce would say, like, I'm Sasha Fierce now, right? I could do this now.
Right.
So a lot of people might be apprehensive about role playing. I know I've talked with a lot of women. They're like, what? You want me to put on a wig? I'm like, I don't want you to put on a wig, but your man might want, a little change up.
Right.
And if you're feeling exhausted and tired, and sometimes I know everybody can look in the mirror and be like, I just don't feel like doing this right now.
Right.
But you put on a costume and you can really get into character.
Sure enough. No, you definitely hit the nail on the head. That sounds about right.
Yeah, and then this is really, really an important part. I think that could be a really great benefit for marijuana and sex. I think the biggest killer of sex, of sexual pleasure, of great sexual relationships is stress, right?
Absolutely.
Nobody has time. We're at the medical school, right? We're
Right.
both at the medical school. I walk around those hallways. I've asked this informally to all my colleagues, like, who's having the sex life of their
Yeah.
dreams? Who's having the sex life of their dreams? And guess what? Nobody seems to be having the sex life of their dreams. And that's because we're all stressed out. We're all working too many hours. We're all multitasking and doing all of these things. And so from what I understand, marijuana is an efficient way to sort of relieve you from stress, at least temporarily. Is that true?
That is true. So basically, we have a system called ECS, or the endocannabinoid system.
Okay,
And
let's do that. I want everybody listening, endocannabinoid system, because you are a sapiosexual, attracted to intellect. I got that.
So our body produces cannabinol. So what happens is when we're overly stressed, those cannabinoids actually deplete. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, those cannabinoids deplete, and we have cannabinoid receptors. So
Okay.
and cannabis has cannabinoids. So basically, it's almost regenerating the cannabinoids in our body, which basically relieves the stress.
Wow.
So yeah, so the cannabinoids is what fights the stress and anxiety.
People, if you're stressed, get yourself some weed.
Get you some
Okay?
weed.
Get yourself some weed and have some good sex. Okay?
Right.
Remember, not a prescription, just a suggestion. Okay. And for women, the way that our brain works, our corpus callosum, the bridge in our brain that carries thoughts, it's very wide.
Right.
We're able to multitask and think about 8 million things at the same time. So sometimes I know when we're having sex, we're like, should I be doing the dishes? Or what about that work project? Ooh, I got to go get that new purse I saw. There's a lot of things going on when we're having sex. So could marijuana sort of reduce your focus so you're only focused on one thing? Is it able to do that?
I'm not sure about only being able to focus on one thing, but like I stated before, going back to those qualitative studies that I saw, a lot of people were saying that the marijuana actually allowed them to be more concentrated, more focused, even when like things like running, reading a book. Somebody stated that when they're not even smoking weed, they can only focus on that book for about 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So, but they said, when I'm smoking my weed, I could be reading a book for about 2-3 hours or 4 hours or 6, or as long as I need to finish whatever I'm doing. So a lot of people talked about increased focus and more of that, pinpoint focus. So
That's awesome.
I'm not necessarily sure about, being able to balance multiple things, but I do know that is, that basically called anecdotal evidence, or based off
Right.
the evidence that it does increase your focus and with a lot of things. And that's basically a theme that we're seeing across a lot of different people.
Okay, so guys, a complaint I hear from guys a lot is it takes a long time for her to come when they're going down. So I'm like, dude, you need to take some weed, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
she's not gonna do it in 5 minutes. And you might have to spend 50,
Right.
You do it, and
Get yourself
Dr.
some
Sanjaya's rule. Yes, exactly. You do that before penetration, okay? You must lick it before you stick it. Always, okay? Always, always, always. So another issue that women have had, I don't know if everyone out there knows this, but women have always been told that we should get an annual gynecological exam once a year.
Right.
So this recommendation is now being changed, or it's being considered to be changed to once every 5 years. Because everybody has HPV in the world. If you've ever had sex, you probably got HPV.
Yeah.
Most of the time, your body will clear it up on its own. However, doctors have gotten really excited about the colposcopy procedures when they find a woman with HPV. So the colposcopy procedure is they basically take a little piece of cervix off and they test it to see if it has cancer.
Right.
And most often it doesn't have cancer, but some women have multiple colposcopies. And so it shortens their vagina, actually.
Wow.
And so then they have pain because when a penis penetrates, if he's long enough, and ladies, I hope you're with someone who's long enough. Oh gosh. But it hits the cervix.
Right.
Ideally, the penis hits the cervix. So I know a lot of women have complained about vaginal pain due to multiple colposcopies. So maybe marijuana could be effective in that respect. But another thing is some of those women also turn to anal sex. So instead of vaginal sex, anal sex actually becomes more comfortable because the canal is longer.
Wow.
So with all of
That
that,
says a
I know
lot.
that was like a huge,
Right.
brain spin.
Nah, that says a lot. No, you're saying you're choosing anal sex versus vaginal sex. That means the pain is very excruciating, apparently.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So perhaps the some marijuana oils, lubricants, or ingesting it, or a combination of those things, are
Right.
some things you might want to discuss with your doctor.
Absolutely. I definitely think that's something that you want to discuss with your doctor, especially if you're dealing with pain like that.
And speaking of discussing it with your doctor, probably before you discuss it with your doctor, you want to discuss it with your sexual partner. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
I mean,
That
like,
makes sense. Yeah.
even that's the first person,
Maybe they
right?
maybe they're being a little too aggressive. You never know. So
So tell me, what are your suggestions? You're a guy, I'm a girl.
right.
You want to introduce marijuana into your relationship. What are your suggestions to do that? Like, you know what? I think I want to try this marijuana stuff because, I don't like having sex with my husband anymore. And FYI, it is like an epidemic. Basically, women in long-term relationships, studies have shown like the level of lust for their partner, it's just almost non-existent. Like if you've been with a man long enough, women are like, I'm over it. Right? It's really not men. Men actually, their attraction can sustain throughout the relationship.
Wow.
But women actually get bored very, very quickly, which is contrary to the myths that we hear about.
Right.
There's
That's true.
actually even a syndrome called lesbian deathbed, which is like because two women together, they get bored super quick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like the lesbian deathbed because women get bored. We want variety, we want some spice, but that's not what society teaches us that women want necessarily.
Right. You taught me something new. So.
Well, there you go. So keep it fresh, guys. Get your creativity going, right? And don't
Right.
forget to keep working at your tongue.
Most definitely.
But how do you think? Can you give some suggestions about the best way to talk about introducing marijuana with your partner?
What a lot of studies that I've seen is showing that marijuana, just the aroma itself from marijuana can cause like kind of like what aromatherapy does for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, like the relaxation and also like the intriguement of wow, what is that? You know what I'm saying? Because some of it has like mango smells, you got lemon smells.
So you're like, I'm gonna intrigue her with my mango marijuana.
Right. A lot of people, the views of marijuana is changing so much. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Over the past 50 years, the views of marijuana has.
Oh, I know. So I'm from San Francisco.
Right.
I was going to a real meeting the other day at the medical center, a real meeting, and I get this text from my mom showing me a picture of the products that her dispensary has just dropped off. This is my 72-year-old mother, okay?
Wow.
And so it's really changed a lot,
Yeah. It definitely has changed the views. The stigma is changing. Everything is changing. So people are more looking at it as more like a kind of like on the same equivalency as alcohol or cigarettes or something like that. So people are more open to it's just like if someone passed me a cigar or something like that. It's like the same thing in people's eyes today.
Right. I agree. It's very, very, very commonplace.
Right.
But I do think it is something you should discuss with your partner.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've heard from different people, like they want to be with a partner who also uses marijuana, or they don't like when their partner uses marijuana, or differences. So, relationships, I think sexual relationships are tough enough.
Yeah.
So I think one of the easiest things you can do to make them better is to be transparent with your partner.
Right.
And if you do have a partner, though, who you think might benefit from marijuana, like say you're having sex with a woman and she's got some vaginal pain, or she's recovering from some trauma, or she's going through menopause, or you're a woman, like me with really tight walls and you squeeze so hard, you're like, look, you might get some bruising after this interaction, okay?
Right.
I don't know. So if you're in that case, then like, hey, but don't you worry, I got my marijuana oil for after.
Right. I guess you got to think about this, what our relationships built off of, and usually relationships are built off trust. So if I'm telling you, you smoke this, you'll relax a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You're more likely to listen to me versus someone basically off the street. You know what I'm saying? So once you're already in that relationship, I think it's easier, you know what I'm saying? Because we're not talking about any like hard drugs. Like even though marijuana was considered a Schedule 1 drug, we all know that it's not. We all know that it's down in the levels. So it's not something like I'm telling you, hey, try this heroin or try
just shoot it up.
Yeah, just
once.
shoot it up.
Come on.
Just shoot it up one time, you'll feel good. You know what I'm saying? So, it's different. So like I said, we see it on the same playing field as, alcohol and cigarettes and things of that nature. And also if you're talking about, your intimate partner, that trust is already established. So they're more likely to try it. So a lot of things that I am seeing though is not necessarily the partner doesn't like the marijuana, it's always the method of administration or how you actually use it. You know what I'm saying? And certain cultures are more likely to use marijuana in a different way. Some cultures are more likely to smoke blunts. Some cultures
Right.
are more likely to do bowls. Some cultures are more likely to smoke joints. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Some are the tinctures and different methods of administration. Some people are more accepting, or your partner may be more accepting of using it in a different way. Some people just don't like the smell of it. Some people do.
So you're saying, like, if your partner's not necessarily into it, like, we don't have to force them to be into it, but there's all these different ways of administration.
Right.
So,
right.
like, you might like to smoke it, but your girl doesn't like to smoke it.
Right.
So you're like, you know what, babe? I don't need to smoke it around you, but maybe we could try these cookies or this
Right.
oil or this tincture,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or we
yeah.
could try something else. And then even if they don't like it, at least you're not bringing the smell into the relationship, or you're not bringing something that's offensive necessarily.
Right. And you know what? And another thing, you always want to be respectable of your partner. You never want to get them a high THC in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Something that's like really, really like.
What if she's really stressed? No, I'm just messing with you.
I don't know. That might be a bad idea. Sometimes you got edibles and stuff like that. They really concentrate. It all depends who makes them and stuff like that. So just be respectful.
Be respectful of your partner's
Right. Because you
boundaries.
don't want anyone to have a bad experience and they're like, oh, I hate weed. You know what I'm saying? Because weed is really, weed is really good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you don't want anyone to have a bad experience.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And you know what I think is the best way to talk about, like, introducing marijuana into your sex life? Duh, you got to share this podcast with your partner, okay? You need to, like, rewind, okay? Get your partner next to you and be like, boo, we need 15 minutes to talk about this. And you know what you ain't got to do? You ain't got to talk. You just got to let us talk. And then you know what that's going to do? Generate a conversation about weed and sex that you have never had before, okay? And it's going to lead to some interesting conversation between you and your partner, and perhaps some pain-free penetration tonight. Booyah! Before we go, we're going to wrap it up with your climax. Now, the things you need to remember from this show is that there's different types of marijuana, people. Not all weed is created the same, okay? We have indica, and that's like higher CBDs. It's going to really relax you a little bit more. Lower THC, so maybe not as mentally high. And then you have the sativa, sunshine sativa, daytime more. It's going to give you a little bit more energy, a little bit higher THC concentration and lower CBD concentration. So there's different types of marijuana. And Dr. Will Joseph, he's like, look, if you're going to have some energetic sex, you might want to consider sativa. Okay? That's what you might want to consider for that.
And then you want to try some indicas afterwards.
Indicas afterwards for the pain. And the second thing I need you to remember is, yes, weed might be very helpful for people who experience pain during sex. There's topical ways that you can apply it right to the area of pain, to the vagina or the anus. I don't know what you're doing in your bedroom. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So there's all kinds of pain and all kinds of ways weed can enhance your life if you need to use it to relieve some pain that occurs during sex. Okay. And most importantly, what you need to remember is, as Dr. Joseph said, some of this weed can have too much THC. Someone can get too high, and it could turn out to be a bad experience, which is why it is so wonderful now that 85% of U.S. states, according to Dr. Joseph, now have some form of marijuana available, either medically or recreationally, and that really empowers you to know what is in your marijuana. Remember, Dr. Joseph really advocates for you knowing the CBD and THC concentrations so that you can sort of predict the effects of your marijuana and that you can use it appropriately, whether you're getting excited for sex or whether you're recovering from pain after sex. There's different types of marijuana for different sexual purposes. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Hey now. Look, you guys know what you need to do. For your daily dose of Nookie knowledge, you need to check me out on all the social media networks. That's DRSONJIA all day on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Come on, baby. Let's link up. I had so much fun talking to you, and I cannot wait to do it again soon. Everybody, put your hands together for Dr. Joseph. This is Sex in South Beach with Dr. Sanjaya, where everyone comes for a happier, healthier sex. Sense Aromatherapy Body Oil. Simply go to sense bodyoil.com and type in the code MyClimax to get half off today. You'll thank me tomorrow.